Welcome, everybody. All right, today we're talking about overcoming anxiety. This is a big issue for lots of people. What is anxiety? Anxiety is basically fear. Now, if you think about it, life is all faith-based. Now, I'm not talking about God. I'm not going down the religion path. What I'm talking about is everything you do is a leap of faith. Every decision you make is a leap of faith, including where to go to dinner. You don't know what's going to happen on the other side of it. You don't know what's going to happen when you get in your car. You don't know what's going to happen when you buy that house. You don't know what's going to happen when you have children. You don't know what's going to happen when you change your jobs, when you move to a new city. You have no idea. You think you do, but you don't. Now, a lot of people live in fear, and so they spend their whole life calculating and trying to come up with the most pragmatic decision that they could possibly come down to. But if you are doing that with your life, you're a control freak and you're going way far against the parameters of what life is designed to be, which is a faith-based process. Many people have trouble with faith. That's why there's so much conflict around all religions and how much affiliation you have to a god or a religion, because it's faith-based. We don't like that. We want to control every freaking thing on the planet. So I call it job security, because anxiety is fear, and fear is what people love to live in. It's both mental and physical state of negative expectations. And expectations, if you want to be anxious and depressed, have the expectations, and they're probably not going to get met. And what is going to be the result? The result's going to be either failure, you failed me, or I failed myself, or I betrayed myself, or you betrayed me. Now that means you're going to have a very vile reaction. So people that live with expectations are miserable human beings to be around, because they expect everything to kiss their butts. Life's not designed for that. Life is designed to adapt. Life is designed to take a chance, make a decision, and go with it, and commit, and make it happen. But we don't like that. We want to hedge our bets, and we want to try. Well, I'm going to try, but if it doesn't work out, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. Well, try is not a faith-based choice. It's a fear-based choice with a back door, so you can run for the border whenever you see that things may or may not work out, instead of getting the complete lesson from the commitment of getting something done. Anxiety mentally is characterized by an increased arousal and apprehension into distressed worry. And physically, it's also unpleasant because there's multiple body systems, danger, real or imagined, that get triggered. And so that means if you're living in fear-based life, you're probably going to be a fat heifer, because you're going to have lots of cortisol and your body's not going to process it out because it's always in self-protection mode. The cognitive feelings of dread and anticipation of some bad outcome, the physical sensations like, jittery, racing heart, is designed for discomfort. And anxiety is meant to capture attention and stimulate you to make changes, to protect what you care about. Because the only thing that teaches a human being truly life lessons for a human being in this life is pain and suffering. That's what a human being requires to actually reach out to God. To actually reach out for help is pain and suffering. That is the only thing that a human being understands. And that's why we have to go through pain and suffering to get to the testimony on the other side of it, which is the lesson. That's how we're built. So anxiety means that I don't know if I could survive. Well, yes, you can. You have to figure it out. You could survive everything if you figure it out, almost everything. Obviously, if somebody's going to kill you, or if there's a fire, or, there's, death that you can't control, that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying that most of life has to do with you being able to convince yourself that you will be able to adapt to whatever happens. If you don't want anxiety, that's really the way to go. Occasional bouts of anxiety is natural. It can even be productive. Anxiety can be considered the price we pay for having the ability to imagine the future. Well, yes, It's probably a good idea if you're going to go to Vegas and place a bet to figure out which bet is the safest bet or which bet is a good bet to make. But that doesn't mean you don't make a bet, and that doesn't mean you make the safest bet. What it means is you make a bet that is calculated to have potentially, faithfully, a good outcome. Anxiety becomes a disorder when it's persistent, it's pervasive, it's outside of anxiety can disrupt your daily life. That means it is involving every single decision you make around school, around work, around family, around friends, around marriage, everything that you do. And so, what do people do with anxiety? They drink and they smoke pot. Yes, they do all kinds of stupid stuff like that. Take all kinds of drugs because they want to avoid their anxiety. And then they start making herky-jerky, stupid decisions, faith-based decisions while they're intoxicated. Lovely, isn't it? Nearly one-third of adults in the US will grapple with out-of-control anxiety at some point in their life. That's normal. What calms people down is to have the confidence that they'll handle it. Anxiety is often accompanied by depression, and actually, depression and anxieties, they're two sides of the same coin. You're either anxious and you're depressed because you feel like your life's out of control, or you're depressed and you're anxious because you can't get out of bed. I mean, those are extreme versions, but there's gray area in all of that. Biology can also contribute to your vulnerability to anxiety. Like childhood experiences also do that, like early trauma, like parenting practices, like overprotection or having an authoritarian jerk of a parent. It's neither possible nor desirable to eliminate anxiety entirely because our life needs to incorporate anxiety, because without it, you might walk into a situation and get blown up because you're not looking for the things that you need to, the signs that you need to read to tell you, hey, you may be in danger. It plays a critical role in keeping us alert and alive, but it doesn't mean you have to live by it. Treatment is geared to keeping anxiety manageable, not to eliminate it. Anxiety can be treated successfully with therapy, medication, or both. It can also be treated with changing your mindset, like meditation and prayer. Lifestyle measures such as regular exercise, deep breathing are also extremely important to controlling anxiety. But let's think about this prayer, meditation weird thing. Well, what is the basis of prayer and meditation? It's about the elimination of suffering, what you are calling important that may not need to be important, what you are fearing that may not need to be feared, what you have to convert from fear into faith. That is what prayer and meditation solve, is the elimination of suffering and how to minimize it to the point that you can focus. You know, if we also look at why anxiety is on the rise, it's now the leading mental health problem around the world. And the incidence of anxiety is rising, especially among youth. Increasing numbers of children, adolescents are being diagnosed with this disorder. But here's the other problem. We're living in this democratic, socialist, weirdo culture where they don't like police. They don't like safety. They don't like people having the ability to have accountability and justice. They don't want any justice whatsoever. And so the homeless person can walk in your home and pretty much blow everybody up and get out of jail about a week and a half later. We had somebody the other day in downtown Seattle that took a board and a nail and just whacked a lady in the head, 75 years old, and carved her eye out with it. Now he's in jail for a week and a half, and some stupid Democratic judge is going to let him out back on the streets after he's already been arrested 8 other times for doing similar things. This is the life we're living in. So yes, anxiety is pervasive because these stupid ass politicians, these socialists that live with their mommies and daddies their whole life and never had to earn a dime, go out there and make these stupid rules that make us all unsafe. So yeah, anxiety is on the rise because these people, like the Democrats, can shoot you, and they'd sit around and celebrate the fact that they shoot somebody that doesn't line up with their opinions because they are the gods of the world. And that's what they think they are. That's why they tore our country apart while Biden was the president and they got away with making all his choices. It's really sad. Often cited reason for general rise in anxiety is the burden of uncertainty in almost every domain of modern life, because what we used to believe were human values don't exist anymore. Like the caring about human beings, like the caring for another human being, even if they have a different opinion, looking at people more as good than bad. That's gone away. Now we have social media where people act like assholes when in reality they can't take accountability for what they profess in their social media. And people act like they have absolute facts when all they're doing is pulling it straight out of their ass. And people are sitting around believing it because we are overwhelmed with technology. People use it and they're learning how to use it, but they're forgetting their humanity. And that's the sad part because humanity requires accountability and making room for each other and caring about what one person may care about that I may care less about. But that's making room for each other. That's what makes us good and bad. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of world because social media is eliminating that. And now we're going to be inundated by robots and AI, which is going to tell us all the facts and nothing about values. As a matter of fact, if you want to commit suicide, go to ChatGPT and it'll tell you how to do it. It's really sad. There's two big important factors contributing to anxiety among the young. Parenting practices to overprotect children, so the hover parents, which were created by the latchkey kids. So the latchkey kids had two parents that were working. They came home, they had to entertain themselves, do whatever. They were free range chickens. They could go out, smoke pot, smoke cigarettes, drink, do whatever, and their parents were hardly ever around. And that's called a latchkey kid. And what they believe is, oh my God, I was out there having sex at 12 years old. I was molested by the uncle. I've done this, and all these terrible things happened to them. So then all of a sudden, they have children, and what do? They lock them in prison, and they hover around them when they're at the park because they know what happened to them when nobody was looking as a child. And that's the sad part. They overcompensate their trauma of being a latchkey kid, and now hover parent is all we have. And these people are psychotic because the kid doesn't want to make any choices for themselves because mommy and daddy control just about everything because their parents and they themselves were traumatized by having parents that could care less. Increasing numbers of children and adolescents are being diagnosed with anxiety because they have no ability to make decisions because their parents are so controlling. So now we have generations of kids who can't make decisions, don't know what they want, don't know have a passion, don't have a purpose because they're not connected to other people. So they lay in the basement and they're going to live off mom and dad's retirement until they croak off, and then they're going to take the rest and live as long as they can and then probably go on Social Security. The other thing that is recognizing the signs of anxiety, that is something that is very important for all of us. Because anxiety declares itself not just to be endless loops of worry in the mind, but with the heart pounding discomfort in the body, general jumpiness, trembling, ringing of ears, shortness of breath. These are all symptoms of anxiety. The bodily symptoms of anxiety is highly misleading. Not only are they often misinterpreted, like a feeling like you're having a heart attack or impending doom where you can't get out of bed, the cardinal feature of panic attacks, but they often lead to, medical misdiagnoses, is assumed to be the result of physical causes. But what it is the fear of the unknown and your own mind going through mental circuses trying to resolve the unknown. Now, if you were a faith-based person, because when faith enters, fear leaves, if you were a faith-based person in life and in yourself and in God or whatever you have faith in, you would not you would have a remedy to your anxiety because you would have faith that you can handle it. You've been through this before. You've had bad choices. Things, if my spouse is going to leave me, have an affair, that's what's going to happen and I'll deal with it when it happens. My deal is I have to make a decision now as to what I'll do before my wife or spouse, husband, whatever, has an affair. That's the only choice I can make. That's what you have to narrow down to. What choices will I make? That is what you need to have faith in yourself. That's a big deal. And that is the remedy, the main remedy for anxiety. But we're going to talk about a lot of other remedies later on. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back, talk more about anxiety. So come back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about overwhelming anxiety. You know, generalized anxiety or disorder is a main symptom of anxiety. It's the main diagnosis from the DSM-5. You know, the major domains of life, like work, love, money, health, is the most common ingredient that drives generalized anxiety disorder. And then integrating fear into your work, into your love, into your money, into your health. If you want to integrate fear into all of those places or in any one of those places, you're going to feel like you're vulnerable. You're going to have anxiety. And that's called generalized anxiety because you've generalized it to several categories of your life. Then there's social anxiety disorder. It's more narrowly focused on fear, negative evaluation of others, is the rise among younger adults. But the other problem is we have a bunch of fat, stationary people and even skinny, stationary people who are out of shape and can't function. There are so many people that cannot lift weights, that cannot jog, that cannot walk, that cannot do a lot of things because they're either too fat or too out of shape or too weak. It's very sad, but our culture is very stationary. We used to hunt for food about 150 years ago. We don't do that anymore. So guess what? We're lazy. Dorito eating, like Kamala Harris, idiots. And so what do? We're stationary people. And so what we have to understand is that yes, you're going to feel anxiety if you're too fat to function, if you can't even be around your kids and have fun and lay on the floor with them. Yes, if you're going to be too fat, too out of shape, too weak, you're going to feel anxiety because when it comes down to it and you have to do something hard like mow the lawn, you're probably too much of a lazy ass to be able to do that. So yeah, you better feel some anxiety. And anxiety is the indicator in your brain that says you better do something about it, but most people won't. They'll just eat more Doritos. Phobias are also generally target specific objects or experiences. Sometimes anxiety roars into the scene with a sudden intense burst that builds into terrifying crescendos in minutes, like entering an airplane, like entering a small room, like entering a crowd. Panic attacks can strike seemingly random out of the blue, but they occur because with incapacitating frequency because it builds on each other. Oh, here's another crowd. Oh, here's another airplane. Oh, here's another car I've got to get in after a car accident. So trauma often triggers our panic attacks. Wherever we feel the most vulnerable is where you're going to have the panic attack. And that could be sitting at the comfort of your home. But you could be thinking about something that drives your panic, and yes, you will feel panic. Now, what causes this? The real cause is being human, the capacity to imagine your future. That's what causes it. Yes, your brain is the fertile ground for uncertainty. And there's a whole lot of uncertainty in the world these days. You've got all these psychotic European governments that are, global economy and yes, let all the bad people have everything and all the ones that work and do all the responsible things should be supporting them. So which side do you want to be on? The dummies that work and sacrifice and take accountability, or the smart ones that lay on their fat asses and do nothing and suck the life out of everybody else? And what are we electing? The fat asses who suck the life out of everybody else. And then they take Ozempic so they'll look a little better when they get elected. Anxiety is unique in that it can be triggered in the events of the real world, an upcoming doctor's visit, relationship conflict, the rents increasing. It can be generated internally through thoughts of real or imagined threats. What's the best therapy? Faith. The first line treatment is faith in yourself, reframing your thoughts to I can handle this. Practical and present oriented life. Therapy helps people recognize the distortions that anxiety forces on them. It helps them confront their fears safely, provides techniques for reversing reactivity. The goal is to restore calm. So, what is peace? Peace is the ability to accept the unacceptable. This is unacceptable. It does not meet my expectations. Well, guess what? Freaking figure out how to accept it. Well, my spouse left me and I'm raising 4 children by myself. Yes, you were probably an asshole too. What was your accountability for it? And the other part of it is accept the unacceptable because you're in this circumstance and maybe you're not to blame because they all went off and had an affair and they were too immature to be your partner. Guess what? You married it, deal with it. This is where you're at. Accept the unacceptable. That is peace. Therapy has the added value of taking place in the present of real human being. Social creatures, we have nervous systems exquisitely attuned to the influence of others. So what happens is our brain collects traumatic events and it drops them into a fight or flight memory gland above our brainstem. And that gland is meant to keep us alive so that we don't have to think. We instantly will react no matter what because the brain has triggers built in to say, hey, if you're in this kind of crowd or if somebody acts like this, you better get ready. And so your brain puts you in fight or flight. It has triggers based on trauma. And those triggers grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. So if you got triggered in the Walmart, now every time you enter Walmart, you're going to get triggered. Regardless of real or imagined threat you're reacting to, anxiety is both mental and physical. Your body and your brain both react to it. Your body gets ready for it. The hormones go in place. The cortisol stays there, and your body starts storing fat. So people that live with a lot of anxiety generally have either an eating problem, fat, or eating problem, too thin. And the deal is they're generally weak and unhealthy in many regards. Anxiety will tear you apart. What strength is, and when people work on their body and work on their physical health, what they're reminding their brain is that I can control my anxiety. Yes, I can control my body. Yes, I have a body now that will respond to the world, and maybe I can actually not have to lift the folds in my stomach to have intercourse with another person. You know, that is a big deal. But a lot of people don't understand that. They don't live that way. They just avoid their problems left and right. Regardless of a real or imagined threat, we have to understand that overwhelmed by negative feelings, your mind is activated to be on the lookout for danger. And if you're always looking out for danger, you're not going to have time to worry about being present or actually enjoying yourself. The physical arousal of jitteriness and muscle tension means that you are not emotionally available. That means that this joyful event is no longer joyful. Well, who wants to spend all their time in misery? Not everybody. So what are you going to do? You're going to avoid everything that makes you hypervigilant, that makes you feel like you're in fight or flight. And so people become more and more agoraphobic. They isolate and isolate and isolate. So anxiety will funnel your life down to all of the most safest choices. Sitting and watching baking shows on television, sitting around eating pizza, having deliveries of every single thing so you never have to go to the store. Sitting on your video games for hours with people halfway across the world that you don't even know and then start to falsify a best friend relationship with. I mean, people are psychotic nowadays. They, sitting there watching social media for hours and hours and hours while your brain basically turns off. Panic attacks are abrupt bursts of acute anxiety that can make you feel like you're about to die, but they're not life-threatening unless you make them into life-threatening. The body sensations become extremely intense, pounding heart, racing pulse, the feeling of difficulty getting enough air triggers even more anxiety. Why? Because you start clenching your teeth and breathing through your nose. So when you do that, when you're in an anxiety state, you clench your teeth, you breathe through your nose. You only breathe through one nostril at a time. That's why we get boogers. So what happens is with people with anxiety, you're going to breathe through one nostril. So every 4 hours, your brain flips from one nostril to the other. That's why we get boogers. So one side dries up, the other side's wet. The one that's wet is the one you breathe through. So the deal is that when you're in anxiety, you are depleting your brain of oxygen. Oxygen's what makes the blood, the sun blow up. So that's what makes your organs churn blood. If you're not going to have enough oxygen, your organs can't churn blood. So what happens? They go into a panic mode. They can't survive. So who takes all the oxygen? Your brain, because your brain operates your body. So if your brain's taking all the oxygen out of your body, out of your bloodstream, guess what? The kidneys aren't going to work. The stomach's not going to work. Now you're going to have all this acid in your stomach. Your heart's not going to be able to function. And yeah, you're going to feel like you're dying, and you quite frankly might be. You might have a heart attack because of that. But the bottom line is your organs aren't going to function until you get more oxygen. So if you want to calm your anxiety down, number one, you need to calm your thoughts down to faith-based thoughts. I can handle it. It's going to be okay. And the other thing you need to do is you need to get more oxygen. Well, the quickest way to do that is an aerated sports bottle, because the aerator breaks the oxygen out of the water. Water has 86% oxygen. So if you drink from an aerator, your body doesn't have to break the oxygen out. It's already done by the aerator. That's why athletes use it, so they get instant muscle strength. But the bottom line is that air is about 24% oxygen, so breathing air will help you, but water is the main ingredient that will assist you with anxiety quickly through a sports bottle. Normal worries become problematic when they interfere with sleep, going to school, paying attention, engaging in activities with others. Many people experience anxiety because they see the world through how they view other people seeing them. They always feel vulnerable. So a lot of people have lots of anxiety because they haven't moved their developmental state. What they need is a good midlife crisis, because at a midlife crisis, you realize nobody ever really thinks about you that much. Your kids, your spouse, your parents, your siblings, your friends, they don't think about you that much. You are not nearly as important as you think you are. You're important when they need you, or when they need you to make them look good. Outside of that, they don't think about you that much. You want to think they do, though. So the people that think everybody thinks about them all the time, what they're wearing, how they look, how fat they are, how skinny they are, how sexy the people are so stupid. They sit around and live their life based on how they want people to see them instead of who they really are. They spend little time developing who am I, and what they are more worried about is who I am to you. Well, that's like a little kid trying to prove to their parents that they're an adult. So that's what people do up till about 40 to 50 years old. Look at me, I got the house. Look at me, I got the education, I got the kids, I got the holidays at my place, vacations, I got the money in the bank, I got more than mommy and daddy. I got this, I got that. Yeah, you proved you're such a big adult. No, you're not a freaking adult until you finally realize you're not that important and you start making choices for who am I really. And some people get really stupid. They buy the red Corvette and they breed with somebody 20 years younger and they blow up all their integrity and all their life. Other people realize I've got to stop putting my priority in how people see me, and I've got to see myself and put value in who I am for me. And then people will see me for who I am and the decisions that I make, and they will either respect or not respect me, but that will draw people to me. Hopefully my decisions as an adult start attracting other people towards me because of the choices I'm making. That's how you teach people how to love you. So what causes anxiety? Brain chemistry, life experiences, trauma or chronic stress, personalities, your temperament. You know, if you're a freaking empath, you're always going to worry about what everybody else is thinking and trying to empathize and put into, even though they're your own fears, put your own fears into everybody else. So you're going to walk around worrying about the rest of the world. Those people have a lot of anxiety. I'm an empath. Well, if you're a freaking empath and you put all your energy into being an empath, you're going to be one hell of a miserable human being. You better start empathing with your own choices in your own life instead of how you feel everybody else feels. Then there's these cognitive patterns. If you're going to be a negative, well, I'm just a realist. That's what I do. I'm a realist. I make real decisions. I care about the reality. Well, reality is very ethereal. You know, it's nice that you think your reality is the only reality on the planet Earth, But our deal is, if we're going to mix it with other human beings, is you have to understand everybody's got a different perspective. And really, what you have to do if you want to be intelligent is figure out what their intentions are, not project what you think their intentions are, but actually care enough to ask questions and learn what their intentions are so that you can figure out how to integrate a relationship. You know, there's medical conditions, and then there's substance abuse, of course. If you're going to drink or, take drugs, you're one hell of an anxious human being. You're coping with life. Why? Because you have a lot of fear. And so, people that drink and smoke live in fear and cope with it that way so they don't have to worry about their fear. They can just walk in and be who they are. At least the most dramatic, unfiltered, stupid version of who they are. Poor sleep causes anxiety. Caffeine, substances, anxiety. Lack of movement, sitting on your butt, screen time, skipping meals. All of these lifestyle habits cause anxiety. So if you already have a worried brain and you have poor sleep, caffeine, lack of movement, screen time, skipping meals, you're probably going to be one hell of a horrible, irritable person to live with. And then you've got, major life events. And then you've got these people, especially in the Pacific Northwest, that avoid every form of conflict known to humanity and have no EQ, emotional quotient whatsoever. So those people will avoid every situation. If you're going to be an avoidance person, you're a fear-based person. You're weak. And what are you going to do? You're going to vote for Democrats because they solve every problem for you. You don't have to think, they'll do it for you. And they're dumber than hell. And then you've got negative thoughts, worrying about the worst possible outcomes. Well, if you're going to feed your brain with negative thoughts and negative feelings and worry about how you feel all the time and make all your choices based on, should I go to work out? Well, I don't feel like it. Well, then you make your choice like that. You're probably one hell of an anxious, miserable human being to be around. And then you got to go breed and have children, of course, and be married to make somebody else miserable. You got to do that, don't you? Because you're anxious. They got to breed because they're anxious. Oh, I'm a physical person. That's my love language. I need hugs and kisses and blah, blah, blah. Why? Because you're fear-based. Get over it. Be faith-based. Have a little faith in yourself. Go out in the middle of the jungle, be naked, and try to survive and get out of it and prove to yourself that you can actually make it in this world. Have willpower. Be able to make choices. If you don't want to be an anxious person, you have to think a little more rationally than how do I fear? Anxiety refers to anticipation of future concerns. It's more associated with muscle tension and avoidance behavior. It's an emotional response to immediate threats. But here's the deal. If you're out in the middle of the jungle and you know a tiger's out there and you know a bear's out there, what can you do? You prepare for that to happen, but does that prevent it from happening? No, but at least you have a strategy if it does. There are several types of anxiety disorders: generalized anxiety, panic disorders, agoraphobia, specific phobias. We have to understand that that's what comes with anxiety. What are the ingredients that come with anxiety? Palpitations, rapid heart rate, sweating, trembling, shaking, feelings of shortness of breath, smothering, chest pains, feeling dizzy, lightheaded, feeling of choking, numbness or tingling, chills, hot flashes, nausea, abdominal pains, feeling detached, fear of losing control, fear of dying. Yeah, you are just not going to be the most human being on the planet if you let anxiety run your life. So, if you want to go for percentages, people that have specific phobias, afraid of germs, afraid of crowds, afraid of airplanes, you are about 8 to 12% of the people who experience anxiety. Social anxiety is about 7% of our population. So after COVID, now we have a bunch of cave-bound hybrid humans living in their caves, afraid to come out and making every excuse not to. Then you have panic disorders. Those are people that have some form of trauma, but basically they invent a lot of trauma in their brain. They're about 2 to 3% of the people with anxiety. Then you have the agoraphobics that have to stay at home, and God forbid they get a job that requires them to go to the office. They ain't going to do that. They quit the job before they go to the office. That's 1 to 1.7%. Generalized anxiety disorder is about 2.9% of our population of anxiety people. Separation anxiety, which happens in youth, that happens because you have absolute jerk parents who only care about their own conflicts and themselves. And they show up to your games and they show up every once in a while and they guilt and shame you when you don't have good grades. But can they actually have a conversation and actually care about you? No. All they care about is their penis and vaginas and their stupid brains and their stupid meaningful things in their lives and their stupid alcohol and their stupid drugs and their stupid obsessions with work and all their obsessions with themselves. And they bred because they're breeding stock. And there's lots of them. 50% of the people that have children in this world are breeding stock. If you expect them to be parents, you ain't going to get it. You'll get a remnant of them. About the other 50% is a spectrum of what would be a parent. So the reality is, and the understanding is, don't expect your parents to be parents because most of them aren't. Most of them are little children living adult lives, making really stupid choices and telling you what to do and making you think that what they think is right and then torturing you until you believe what they think is right because they are absolute narcissistic turds that don't care about creating a kid that can think for themselves because they want to form you into the mini me of themselves. That's what a vast majority of people think of parenting. But what we have to understand is as you get older, you have to go, mom and dad are no longer mom and dad. I don't need a mom and dad. What you are is Fred, and what you are is Ann. And Fred and Ann are human beings with a background, and I don't have to assimilate every stupid thing that they taught me growing up. All right, we're going to take another break, and we're going to come right back. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we're talking about overwhelming anxiety. Many people know that yoga, exercise, meditation, talk therapy help reduce anxiety. Having a dialogue with yourself to calm yourself down and have a little faith in yourself would help. The other things that help anxiety is diaphragmatic breathing. Now, what is that? It's consciously controlling the automatic process of breathing. You close your eyes, pull as much air in as you can into your lungs. You try to make enough so that your belly actually pokes out. You hold your breath for a couple of beats, then let it out slowly as possible. And you try to breathe out as much as you can by tightening your abdominal muscles. Why does this work? The slower you exhale, the more you'll engage in a parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming the body down after it's had a bad fright or shock. You can't be both scared and calm at once. So focus on lengthening your exhale to get the most out of it. The long exhale is what tells your body everything is okay. Now here's another little trick. Sour. If you can eat something slowly that is sour, you're sending a signal to your brain that you can't be anxious and afraid and eat at the same time because your body, and when it's in direct fight or flight fear, doesn't understand. It gets a really strange mixed signal if you're eating something sour, because sour is the bitterest taste you can have. When you have sour in your mouth, your brain goes, hey, how can I be eating and anxious at the same time? I have to be one or the other. Well, if I'm eating something sour, I'm probably got a lot of saliva, and that means I got to swallow, so I better start focusing on that because I don't want you to choke to death. So it changes the focus on what you're eating rather than your anxiety. You know, releasing tensions with movement also helps because if you're moving your body, you're not restricting, and that gently helps your body understand that it's not in the fight or flight mode. People carry so much tension in their jaw, their necks, or their shoulders, they don't even realize it. But if you start relaxing your body, you can relax your mind because you're sending your mind a new signal that your body is okay, that it is okay to feel loose, that is okay that your body can actually stretch. It's okay that your body can actually seek comfort. The other thing is to use your words. You want to talk to your anxiety, talk to your fears. Ask yourself questions that force an analytical parts of your brain to engage. What emotion am I feeling right now? If it's anger, is it really anger or is it frustration? Is it really anger or is it that I'm hungry? Is it really anger or is it that I've thought a bad thought about this person or I'm triggered by a bad memory? Why am I feeling this way? It's because something that's already happened or something that I'm afraid of that might happen. Do I have a little faith in myself that I'll handle it? Maybe if I did, I wouldn't have all this craziness. You know, the deal is that some people take longer to diminish their anxiety. But what you have to do is send your body and your brain alternative signals that you're going to be okay. Using your imagination to induce feelings of well-being and safety. Now, that's what prayer and meditation often teach you. It teaches you to think of well-being and safety. Think of a person, a place, or a thing that brings you joy and comfort. Picture in your mind as much detail as possible. Picture in your mind when you have survived circumstances that you didn't know, what was going to happen. You know, if it's the ocean, for instance, smell the salt water, watch the seagulls flying, the warmth of the sand. Bring yourself to somewhere else where you're more comfortable. You can do the Jedi mind tricks in your brain to take your brain elsewhere. You just have to have the focus to be able to do it. You also want to change your language in your brain. Speak more than one language. You know, if you know a different language like sign language, like Spanish, like French, any other language, start speaking the other language. And guess what? Your brain doesn't have time to fear because it has to focus on integrating the new language. So people who are bilingual have a very natural way to avoid anxiety. Start speaking the other language you don't speak as often, and guess what? Your brain is going to transition away from your anxiety because now it's doing a thought-based process. Music is another stimulation. It's like little children. If they're all focused on the thing you just took away, turn on the TV show that they like. Put some music on that stimulates their brain. Put a new toy in front of them that entertains them. You have to divert their attention. You don't sit there and explain, you can't have this because you're bad or you did this bad thing. You don't sit there for 5 minutes hammering on what you took away. You give them attention to something new. That's what we need to do as human beings dealing with anxiety. We need to focus on things we can control, not on what we can't control. Music, television show, something, artwork, hobby, something will get your brains elsewhere. If you've got chronic anxiety, probably developing a new music playlist that accommodates taking your brain to somewhere else and eliciting different kinds of emotions would be helpful. The other thing is prioritizing sleep. Well, how do you go to sleep? You focus on something that you can control, like breathing, like lambs jumping over a fence. Yes, something simple that is logical, not emotional. Logical. How am I breathing? If I focused on my breathing for 3 minutes, my brain would go into the shutdown mode, much like a computer that's not being used. And it would go into sleep mode after about 3 minutes. So if I focused on how am I breathing for 3 minutes, there's a real good chance that I've set the stage for my brain to logically give itself permission to no longer fear, no longer have to process a bunch of emotion, and actually go to sleep. Sleep is huge. You need to know how much sleep your body needs. You need to know how much sleep your brain needs. And if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, you're not going to get good sleep. Or if you do, you're going to get too much. Or your life is going to always be stressful because everybody knows you're a drunk or an alcoholic or something's wrong with you. And there's a good chance everything's going to fall out underneath you because you think you know everything, but actually everybody knows you're an idiot. If you have trouble falling asleep, take a hot shower, bath 2 hours before going to bed, drop your core body temperature, and when you get out of the warm water, it helps stimulate melatonin, which is the hormone that regulates your sleep. And we make that naturally in our brain. Daily exercise can help you manage anxiety and depression. This is because your body produces more serotonin, more endorphins, more dopamine, that gives a positive effect to your brain being able to function better. And a functioning brain makes a functioning body. So if you're going to increase your oxygen intake, you're going to make your organs less stressed. If you're going to increase your oxygen and your bodily intake, basically of strength, you're going to create a mind that is better in tune with the world. So people that are in shape physically often have a better brain because it is more balanced, because it has more oxygen, because the brain is a muscle and it carries 30% of your blood supply. So it needs as much exercise as possible for it to function well. You also want to stay active. Exercise alone helps you manage, but managing your body, going out into nature and focusing on the world means there's an alternative universe than just the four walls I live in. And it's not just the screen that I stare at all day. I actually need to interact with nature. This is a huge part of human beings because that's where we've lived our whole lives generationally. Now that we're all little hobbits, it's way different. But the nature of your body is to get out there and explore the world. But if you're a big fat ass or if you're a weak person, you're probably not going to do it too often. You also want to focus on nutrition. Eating balanced meals throughout the day can help improve your overall well-being, including protein, complex carbohydrates, oatmeal, quinoa, whole grain breads, fruits, vegetables. God forbid you eat all those things. Instead, you want to have maybe 40 or 50 pounds over your body weight so your body can be carrying sacks of potatoes everywhere that you go. That's what other people prefer because they don't want to get in shape. They want that 50, 60, 70, 100 pounds of potatoes that they get to carry everywhere that they go. If you're taking antidepressant and mixing alcohol, it's going to worsen your symptoms of anxiety. So don't do it. They don't mix well. Medication helps brings a sense of relaxation and more tranquil mind, which may reduce stress and calm anxiety. And when you meditate, even for just a few minutes, you help clear your mind from daily stressors. But many people are too hyper to meditate. So once again, what is meditation? It's calming your brain down, allowing your brain to heal, allowing your brain to regulate itself, allowing yourself to control your decisions, to become less reactive and more responsive. That is the differentiator between a child and an adult. Do you react or do you respond? The people that respond have chosen to become adults. The people that react are still little children in adults' bodies, destroying their children's lives, their lives, and everybody around them. Consider lifestyle changes that help you cope and better manage your symptoms. If you find yourself struggling, talk to your primary care provider. Check in about your health. You'd be surprised to learn that some insurers offer digital tools and other tools like actually being able to pay for your gym membership so you'll get your ass in gear and take better care of yourself. That's a big deal. We people have to get off our butts and understand that this world is a complex place, but we're built to deal with complex problems. We are smart people. We can adapt. We can help ourselves. Anxiety is normal. Living with anxiety is deciding how pervasive do I want fear to be a part of my decision making in this life. If you're going to live in fear, you're going to live in a very narrow funnel. If you're going to live in faith, you're going to take chances and you're going to do things. And guess what? You're going to make mistakes. And guess what? You're going to learn from those mistakes and you're going to evolve. We as human beings evolve experientially. That means we have to experience failure. We have to experience bad things to make good things happen. This is a huge part of who we are. It is a very important part of who we are. And we have to understand that anxiety does not have to run your life. There's another thing, that, being outside the home, really helps your brain. It requires us to learn how to be companions with other people. It helps us learn how to connect with others. So how do you connect with other people in a deep and meaningful way? Well, to do that, you have to be willing to talk about your feelings and actually hear how someone else feels without trying to fix it. Yes, validate feelings. Listen to feelings. Communicate feeling. Well, I feel this way. I feel that way. This is not a fact. This is just how I see it. I feel that this. Well, I don't like how you feel. That's factually incorrect. Oh, shut the hell up and just say, I understand how you feel. Can you do that? Instead of telling me all your factual, analytical bullshit that doesn't add up to anything. I don't need to know you're right. I don't care if you think you're right. Don't communicate. You're right. Communicate. If you want a relationship with me, communicate that you understand my feelings. That's what you do as human beings. I understand how you feel. Can you do that and shut the hell up? Because if you can, you don't have to live in anxiety because you understand how to communicate with the world. All these analytical turds think they have to out-intellect each other. That's not the case. We're not trying to prove how smart we are in this life. We have to interact with each other and care about feelings. That is how you develop relationships. People that live in anxiety don't know how to have relationships because everything's about fear. All right, that's our show. I want to thank you for listening. I love hearing from you. You can do that on our webpage at voiceamericamedia.com, libsyn.com, Dr. Gary Bell's Absurd Psychology. Now remember, if stress burn calories, most of us would be supermodels. Also, stress spelled backwards is desserts. You can trade a few hours of good night's sleep for a few hours of panic and fear. You aren't supposed to carry mountains. You are supposed to climb them. Thank you for listening, everybody.